Some months ago, Nationwide contacted John Kelleher, chairman of the National Transport Museum, asking to interview him at the museum and speak about Dublin trams. The Nationwide programme appeared in September 2025.
The old tram system was phased out in Dublin City by 1949, but its history is preserved in the National Transport Museum in Howth.
Dublin got its first tramway system in 1872. At that point in time it was still horse-drawn, and it remained horse-drawn up to 1896. Prior to that, Dublin Corporation refused to allow mechanical powered trams in Dublin. But after 1896, and after a lot of agitation, they eventually agreed. And from 1896 up to around 1901, Dublin's system was converted to electric traction. At its peak, there was around 60 miles of track and 90 route miles of track in Dublin. Quite an extensive system, going in a clockwise direction from Ringsend, which was number 1, all the way around to Howth, which was route 31. Most people did not have any means of transport, mainly they walked. So the tram was a major improvement in getting around the city. And it served the city very, very well. At its peak, there was exactly 330 trams. We have a number of trams that would have been in use in Dublin during the height of the old tramway system. The first of them is number 224. This is typical early horse-drawn or early electric tram. If I took out the control unit here, it would be a horse tram, and the control unit here makes it electric driven tram. Behind me is one of the latter 1920s tram. 12 trams were built for the Dublin-Lucan tramway system, and this one went into service in 1928. It was in service in the Lucan line up to 1940, and in 1940, when that line closed, it then went to the Dalkey line. Dublin trams were quite tall. This one is about 15 foot high, so it's much higher than a normal double-decker bus. And amazingly, 2 trams from the Lucan system survived to this day, and we have both of them. Pure economics was the reason for tearing up the tracks. By the mid-1930s, the tram tracks were in a condition whereby they would have to be replaced. That would have meant ripping up all the streets and replacing the track. That would have been quite expensive. So to buy a bus back in 1937 was about £1,200. It would have cost probably a couple of million to renew the track. So a decision was made around 1935 to replace the trams with buses. The war interfered with that, and it lasted up until 1949. But the decision had been made in the 30s, and it was pure economic reasons.
The trackways were in poor condition, and it was decided to replace the trams with buses.
We probably should never have got rid of them. If we look at the map, the route map of trams in the city, by very minor alterations, we could have covered all the new suburbs that were developed in Dublin from the 30s and 40s and 50s with tram systems. It was just an extension of what was already there. Dublin had, at its peak, was considered one of the finest tram systems in Europe, if not in the world.
John became chairman of the National Transport Museum at the passing of the former chairman, Liam Kelly, about 15 years ago. John, with his hard-working colleagues, have kept the museum ship afloat in spite of the economic crash and the selling of Howth Castle and lands by the Gaisford St. Lawrence family. The museum collection also includes the Director's Tram and number 9 from the Giant's Causeway, both under restoration. Collection also has fire engines, horse-drawn, public utility, military, buses and lorries, and is well worth a visit. Thank you, Jim Kilroy, Director of Tram Restoration.